welcome back to another thriller. It is another 8th grade sample question from the Smarter Balanced Sample Test, the training test accessible to anybody with an internet connection, even you, because here you are on the internet. You could go here and find all kinds of fun problems. I chose this one because it's about my buddy Pythagoras, and they're counting on you not understanding the difference between squares and roots here. Okay? Squares are big, roots are small. I know. Funny, right? You know this, but I just want to remind you about this. Okay? A square is talking about area. For example, the area of a square that's 16 has root of 4, right? Because 4 times 4 is 16. So let's just remember that. Now the sides of a right triangle, that's another way of saying roots. Okay? The sides are the roots. The squares are, well, those are squares. I know, silly, right? Okay, but this is a thing to keep in mind. So we've got two sides of a right triangle. The side lengths are the root of 10 and the root of 6. Okay? So for this problem, if you remember the Pythagorean Theorem, which says that the squares of the sides, the two shorter sides, equal the square of the longest side. So these are sides, these are roots. Okay? Which means the squares are 6 and 10. Okay? If I drew a model of this, there's two possible things that could happen. I could have a square over here of 6 and a square over here of 10. Remember, I'm talking squares over here. I'm not talking the roots, because the root is the side. Okay? And so that means this square, if this were a right triangle, would have to be 16. Okay? Longest possible side, we're talking the hypotenuse. Okay, so we're going to answer this question first. What is the longest possible side length? That means the longest possible root. And this is where you could get fooled, right? Because we can see that the squares, if this is indeed a right triangle, are going to add up to 16. 16 is the square. What's the root? See how drawing a picture can really be helpful? So the root is the square root of 16, which is 4. Okay, that's the longest possible side length. Now, because there's two possible side lengths. Well, yeah, those two possible lengths are simply this. We could have a squared plus b squared equals our missing length. And then we found the root, right? This is the square, remember. This is the square. The answer is asking for the side length, which is the root. Our other possibility, so we could have a missing hypotenuse, we could have a missing leg, which means out of the two given things we have here, the square root of 10 would have to be the longest. Remember, this is 10 is the square. The root of 10 is the side length. The Pythagorean Theorem, I know I've said this about 26 times already. The Pythagorean Theorem is talking about the squares, not the roots. Oh, make sure you remember that. Whew. Those evil test takers are hoping you'll forget that and get the squares and the roots mixed up. Okay? So, 10, 6. X plus 6 equals 10. You can see how simple this problem ends up being if you remember this concept of squares and roots. So this square is 4. Remember, these are squares. I know. Said that 15 times. Let's change the color. Or 26 times or whatever. So, if I had my little triangle, my little model down here, and I had squares of 4 and 6 and 10, it's asking for the side length. It's asking for the root, not the square. So, we've got square root of 10, square root of 6 for the sides here, right? So we'd also have square root of 4, which is 2, right? That's it. So easy if you remember the difference between squares and roots. And don't be afraid to draw pictures. You get scratch paper if you want. You don't have to sit there and scratch your head and look at a blank screen. Use your resources, break things down at such a simple level like this, and all of a sudden, I think they make sense, okay? Squares and roots, big and small, sides, squares. Pythagorean Theorem, squares, not sides. Got it? Good. Have fun on that SBAC test, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.